Hi, everybody, and welcome to Season 9 wikiDeeks Roundtable discussion. We have the members of the wikiDeeks staff and crew here with us today. My name is Diane, and I'm going to be your moderator of this roundtable. But without further ado, let me introduce some of the rest of the wikiDeeks staff who has kindly joined us on this podcast. It's kind of nice to put voices to people's names. We have Karen, who is one of our editors and a regular contributor. She does all of the reviews, well, not all, but most of the reviews, and she's a regular contributor for feature articles and such. So welcome, Karen.
Yep.
Also, Lindy, who, aka Sweet Lou, you probably know her as our resident editor of fanfics. She, if you're into NCSLA fanfics, then you probably have read some of Sweet Lou or Lindy's feature stories. So she writes here for wikiDeeks and for fanfic.net. So check her out if you haven't, of course. Then there's Randy, aka Jericho Steele, our one male member of the male species here, who we have a lot of fun with, and who is joining us today. Randy has done some features and reviews, and of course fanfics for the site. Sykes is here with us today. She's probably our newest member. She does fanfics, and she's going to be having a couple coming out this summer. So make sure that you stand by and watch out for some of her fics that she has coming out. Brenda is with us today. Brenda has helped us out with reviews and definitely feature articles, so we want to welcome her as well today. We have people from all over, and Brenda is one of our international members. She's in Canada. And last but not least, Dr. Gail here, aka Denziland. I'm sure if you love Denzi, you have checked out her site over and over because she is our resident Denzi expert. And we're glad to have her here as well and a member of the crew. So welcome, everybody. I hope you're ready to just dive in and talk about the Season 9 and a lot of other different things about Deeks for this past season. So why don't we just go ahead and start. Let's talk about some of the highlights, the lowlights, and the no-lights of the past season. Well, why don't we just start right now with some of the things that we enjoyed, some of the things we'd like to see carried over, and some of the things that worked this season. So I'm going to throw it out there to you all, and let me know what you think.
Start with the highlights or the lowlights?
Highlights.
Cricket. Okay, this is psyched. This is psyched. I'll start off with, I'm glad that they didn't ignore the fact that Deeks and Kenzie were engaged all season long. I didn't always enjoy the way they referenced it, but you know, we didn't completely forget the fact that these two were a couple and that they were engaged. You know, it's a stressful time for a reason, I guess, and I'm guessing that was realistic to an extent. So we did not forget that they were engaged. There's a highlight.
Okay, good.
Brenda. One of the things that I really liked, I guess it's tough to call it a highlight because it came from a very difficult circumstance, but I really liked the way they handled the loss of Owen Granger, Miguel Ferrer. I can only imagine on a personal level, it was very difficult, and then knowing how to write that into the story and portray that, I'm sure is challenging to know how to honor the career of somebody that you worked with for so long and respected. So I thought the way that they did that in that last little finale, I mean, I was bawling like a baby watching the zoom out with Sam and Callan and his daughter under the tree, but I just thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
This is Lindy. I thought one of the incredible highlights of the season, other than the finale, was the episode Silo. I thought that
Yes.
that was handled so incredibly well, especially the last final scene between Deeks and Kinsey on that rooftop. I mean, that just highlighted everything about not only the characters, but also the incredible acting that these two do. And it was just so special and so heartfelt and so real that you forgot that they were acting. It was from the heart. It was touching. It made you cry. And it kind of balanced out what happened in the finale for me. I mean, here they were struggling with the same question that later causes them to just kind of fall apart there at the end. And I thought it was one of the best scenes ever done on the entire show.
I want to add on to that. This is Gail, aka Dinsyland, and to say that, you know, it's always wonderful because we get so much vulnerability out of both the Deeks and the Kinsey character. From a gender standpoint, I am especially appreciative of the fact that they have not taken that warrior spirit out of Kinsey just because she is now, you know, part of a couple with Deeks that has been sort of replayed over and over in other shows, that once you become a couple, maybe you sort of lose that individualism, and especially out of a character as strong as Kinsey is, I'm glad to see that they have kept true to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'll tag on to that a little bit. This is Psyched again. I think they flipped the gender roles a little bit perhaps here because, you know, they are looking to get married and, you know, move on to the next step of their lives. But it's Deeks that's thinking, gee, we need to stop this. And, you know, why don't we stop and we'll do baby sooner than later? And she's the one that wants to stick with her career still and isn't quite ready to give that up just yet. I kind of like that. And I think that it really lends toward the finale, which, you know, I believe that Karen used the word organic when she discussed that, you know, their argument there. It really was, because these are true life situations, and it felt that way.
This is Karen. I would add that just like Brenda talked about Miguel Ferrer's death, I think what I liked about this season was that they didn't forget about Michelle's death, and they showed how Sam struggled with it right from the start of the season all the way through to the end. They didn't forget about it. They showed a little bit how it affected the other characters. I think we definitely see how it's affected Deeks in terms of what he's thinking about for his own life plans. So, that was one of my few season 9 highlights.
Anything else?
Well, I'm just always happy when Arcady is. I'm just going to put this up. I always love when Arcady is there. He's my favorite TV villain ever. He's so ridiculous, and yeah, he just makes me laugh. I'm glad they haven't killed him off.
I'm not sure I'd classify him as a villain. How funny is that?
I don't know.
Right?
When you said that, it took me, I was taken aback by that.
I feel like he's a sidekick.
Well, yeah. I mean, he clearly has an underside to him. He's got a shady side, right?
Yes.
But he can't help but be good sometimes.
Okay. Is there anything else that we want to add to that? Well, let's look at the other side of the coin. I don't think this was I don't think a lot of people really would classify this as their favorite season. So what are some of the areas that you were?
We lost
Hello?
him.
Okay, fine. Let's address the elephant in the room. That is the new characters, particularly Mosley.
And we can't swear, right?
We're not supposed to, no.
Okay.
So at first I really thought, I was like, oh, this is we're going to hate you and we're going to come to love you, like at least I did for Granger, and that clearly never manifested. And who knows if that was writing, if that was direction, if that was acting. But for me, and based on, I think, a lot of comments that we saw on the site, there tended to be a pretty well-directed sense of what most fans thought about that.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah,
I thought she was introduced kind of like a Granger replacement. We're going to hate her at first, and then we'll come around to see that we actually like her. And she's got this vulnerable side because she lost her son. But as I ranted in my comment on the last episode review, it was astounding to me that a mother longing for her child could be such an unsympathetic character.
I kind of wondered why we felt no sympathy for her at the end. I mean, they just took her so far over the top in that finale. I mean, she was firing everybody. She was going to fire Eric. She was going to fire Nell. She was going to fire, I mean, obviously Deeks, but all of them. I mean, it was so over the top and so cruel. And I don't know why. I mean, here they're trying to get your sympathy by her going after her son, and all of them were trying to help her do that. And yet she came out unsympathetic. And that's really strange to me, a very strange way to handle it. But I mean, she is a great villain, and maybe they just brought a villain home to rest, and it worked wonders if that's what they were trying to do. If it wasn't, then it's a failure. But if that's what they were going for, then they were successful.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how they're going to justify having her have her job next season after, the stunt that she pulled, assuming Nia Long is coming back. I mean, it's not even that any of this had anything to do with national security. This was a purely personal mission. And, she threatened to fire a number of people, in fact, did fire somebody. And how do you come back from that professionally in that situation? So I kind of almost see that the only way that she can come back is if the team defends her or says, no, it's okay, we did this on our own. And I really don't want to see that.
Well, I don't
want
think
to see that either.
But I don't think that they can do that. I mean, I remember all those, I don't remember what season it was, but Hetty having to go before that Senate committee, all those episodes, trying to justify sending Kinsey to Afghanistan to shoot the white ghost person. And so if you're following protocol here for this character, she's going to have to face some sort of tribunal of some sort. I mean, it won't matter what the team says. I mean, it's going to matter what the hierarchy says above her.
Yeah, I just can't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it almost seems as if during the course of the year, they kept on trying to decide, well, let's make her this way. Well, that's not working, so let's make her this way. That's not working, so let's make her this way. So she changed personalities. It was almost like, her head was spinning. She was just changing personalities as she went along, and that it was very jarring for me.
Yeah, I agree. I remember the last few before the finale, she seemed almost human. She seemed almost likable. And then this, and you don't know if that was deliberate on the part of the writers or not. Yeah. So it is jarring.
And there's been lots of times in the past where over-the-top things have been done, where they've pushed the limits, and not even like the White Ghost, but when they all went looking for Callan's roots, but I think they all resigned at that time. But this just seemed to be over the line in a different way. I think perhaps because there was such a lack of empathy on her part, where it was so self-directed and she didn't care what happened to anybody else. But it just, I kept thinking about that. Like, they've done over the line things before. Other people have, Hetty has pushed the limits. But what's different about this? And I think it was the selfishness of it.
This is Randy. My issue was when Callan resigned and left, they resigned to follow him. When
Exactly.
Hetty disappeared, they went to follow her. Mosley was like, "This is what you're going to do, or I'm going to fire you."
Right.
It was she was making them do things that
Exactly.
were questionably just as morally and ethically, but sometimes done legally. Who is the guardian of this child? If it's her, the father, they just kidnapped the child.
Exactly.
We got serious issues going on outside of using her authority to make them do things at her bidding. It totally changed. Like she said, the episode before, she was actually acting human, and then all of a sudden she acts like the Terminator. It just didn't. I was like, please, somebody let her fall out of the helicopter. I'm like, I'm stunned. I mean, the rescuing the child, it should have been emotional, and then the kid doesn't want to get in the helicopter, and she steps out. That should have been an emotional moment, but it wasn't. It was just flat. It was like, okay, great, wow, she's here, whoop-de-doo. It just didn't add anything to it.
Yeah. The thing that I did appreciate about the finale, and maybe the characters needed to have this lack of desire to blindly follow her to have this work, but I think the point that Callan and Deeks were making was a really great one, that this is, and as Randy just said, this is a custody thing. This really shouldn't have anything to do with us, and it caused chasms between both pairs of partners, which I don't know that we've ever seen that before in one episode, much less on one case. So I kind of appreciated that. I really liked that element of the finale. And I don't know, was that the only way we could get to it, was with this horrible character? I don't know.
Well, what I think is interesting is that in the beginning, you always had that idea, and when Mosley talked to Harley, her plan was to just break this team up. She was going to break them up. That was her plan from the beginning. And then in this finale, you started seeing those cracks between the partners. You saw the way Callan and Sam were talking to each other like they're on a completely different page from the other, which they have never been. And then you see Kinsey and Deeks, and they're fighting about things. And the whole thing is splintering. And then you have that final scene where they're all together, and you don't know who's living or who's dying. And it's like, I remember Kimmel saying in the beginning that they were going to do a reset. This looks like a real reset. I mean, what happens after this is anybody's guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's one of the parts that was so jarring, is that she came there ostensibly to break up the team, and then all of a sudden in the final episode, she's co-opting the team for her own purposes. And it's like, hang on a second. Like, are you even sure what you're here for or what you want to do? Like, there was such a disconnect.
It makes you wonder if that was, and I really hadn't thought about this before now, but was her entire purpose of coming to OSP to get her kid back?
Well, that could be, no question.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very good question, as Deeks would say.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Don't you wish we could ask somebody that question that was a writer or the showrunner?
Yes.
If that was an option, I think we would have done that a long time ago.
We could just show up on.
Well, and whether that was planned or whether that, as has already been suggested, that it just sort of evolved as the season went on. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try something else.
I can't imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my feeling for the whole season, if you look at it as an arc, continuing arc, I love this show with a passion. I write about this show with a passion, but I felt no passion this season and I don't know what the cause of that is. I don't know if it's the writing or what it is, or the direction or Mosley, but the only emotional episodes that I can even remember is Silo and that finale. Everything else is like gray matter or something.
Mhm.
I mean, I just couldn't get my teeth into this season at all. And I found it very sad that I couldn't.
And I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that those 2 episodes were really, heavy into Eric Christian Olsen and his, acting chops. And we got to, he was highlighted again, and we got to see the emotionality of him.
Yeah.
Those are really the only, I can't think of another one off the top of my head, episode where we got to see a lot of Deeks.
Yeah. Agreed.
Very true. Well, and it's also, to me, it's also not just the amount of screen time it is, but the kind of the quality, not in terms of good or bad, but it's the nature of what he's doing. And I think he's great at a lot of things, but especially those silent scenes where it's like the facial expressions. I feel like in the earlier seasons, there was so much more of that, and he just doesn't seem to get that anymore. And that's where I feel like, if you're gonna watch TV, it's because what you're seeing is compelling. And he's one of those actors that can just, and Danielle as well, tell a story with their face. And I feel like that has been so underused in the last season.
Agreed heartily.
And I think that a lot of people online are believing that that's because we've got 2 new characters. So now that time is split even more.
Yeah.
So maybe they're taking a hit for that too.
Yeah, too many people. I mean, I wondered all season what Harley's role was going to be, and I thought it was because they were going to really fire Deeks. He was really going to go back to LA, and that she was going to take his place. But when that didn't happen, I'm wondering, okay, what are they doing? Are they planning for the next season? And then in the finale, did they kill her? Did they not kill her? Was she only brought there to be killed? I mean, there's a lot of cliffhangers this season.
Plus, I don't think that she ever actually, she did a little of everything this season. So that I think adds to that confusion, because she, yes, was out in the field a fair amount, but she was also up in ops, working the pad with Nell and Eric. And the rest of the time she was trailing after Mosley, telling what everybody was doing, like she was her assistant. So I was confused about her purpose there as well.
Yeah, she didn't really have a defined, like, what was her job description? What was she supposed to be doing?
She was Mosley's assistant, wasn't she? I mean, she wasn't brought there as an agent.
And yet suddenly she can take down bad guys just as well as Sam or anybody.
Yeah, the whole thing was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and she didn't have to be chosen.
I really tried to be optimistic to go, okay, they know Eric's going to be gone for chunks of the season, and so maybe they thought that they needed a filler. But I'm sorry, if you go back to the root of where this show started, all of the original members of the cast can carry more and have carried more. And, maybe they don't want to go in that direction. They feel like they've already maybe gone in that direction with some of those folks, but it seems superfluous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to write. It's tough to write with multiple characters, and now you've got Kinsey and Deeks, you've got Sam and Callan, you've got Nell and Eric, and now you've got Mosley, and you've got Harley, and you've got storylines for Hetty, and I mean there's only 40 minutes to fill here, and it's like, if you try and do every one of those and give them equal screen time every episode, they're going to get short shifted. There's no way around that. So the ones that stand out are when they're like Silo, because it focused on Kinsey, and then in Deeks, but even the ones that focused on Callan trying to save his father from going back to Russia. I mean, those were strong episodes because they had time to tell those stories. They gave themselves time to tell those stories.
That episode. Sorry, go ahead.
I totally agree with what you guys are saying, and I would always rather hear more about one of these characters' backstory than pulling in an extra character. I mean, look at Eric Beale. We don't know anything about this guy. I mean, it's crazy. I'd much rather learn more about them. But it almost made me feel like they were doing this on purpose because maybe none of the other main stars wanted to spend extra time filming, right? Like maybe they've all negotiated to have a little bit more time off as seasons progress, and so this is what they're left with as a way to compensate.
Well, they had a fair number of recurring characters, or at least repeated characters this season. I think, aside from bad guys, we don't normally get that. I mean, we had Nell's sister, I think, twice. We had.
I hated that. I have to say it. I hated that.
I didn't like her either. We had King was there twice. There was there had to have been, I think, one other person that came back twice. You know, and so that was
annoying little Tinkerbell agent.
Oh, I liked her, I have to say. I really did. I think she was a hoot.
Good, we're sending her to your house. Yeah, pass.
I got a kick out of her.
But talking about, now that we kind of brought up Hetty a little bit, that storyline with Vietnam, I mean, I know I can't swear, but what the heck was that? I mean, that was one of the worst episodes. It could have been one of the greatest episodes.
Yeah.
And, you know, here they brought in Nell's sister, and I kept trying to think, what the hell is she doing there? I mean, they did not need that at all. I didn't get it at all.
They spent way too much time in LA in that episode. They should have been spending all that time in Vietnam. I think I had written this in my comments somewhere. That episode should have been like another Spoils of War. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
That's what it should have been. It should have been that intense and that serious the entire time. And it was a lot of joking and hilarity, you know, even when they were in Vietnam. There was, you know, that scene in the jungle when they were all bickering with the olders and the youngers. And, you know,
stupid.
And then they rescued Hetty in about 30 seconds and it was over.
Yeah.
And it was so dark you couldn't see anyway. So
well,
I've been in combat patrols in jungle in third world nations and stuff. Everything they did was wrong. And from my perspective, as soon as they got off the helicopter and were on the ground in Vietnam, in the jungle, it lost all believability. I was like, are they kidding me? Really? This is it? All that tension. I mean, how many episodes did we build the tension and build it and build it and build it, and we got absolutely nothing in return? Yeah, that was, when that was over, I'm sitting there, I was looking at the TV, and my wife was looking at me, what's wrong with you? Because I was looking at it in shock. I was stunned. I can't believe they did this. Yeah, that was, sorry, I'm done talking about it because I just get,
well,
I know.
I'm a Canadian pacifist, and that whole thing seemed wrong to me too. Like, I was just kind of like, I'm not sure that this is how this really goes down.
It was like they were afraid to do that, to do what they needed to do, like they did in Spoils of War. They brought Nell's sister, then they brought that funky little Chinese guy or whoever he was from that other episode.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And it was like throwing the kitchen sink in there.
Yeah.
It was incredibly bad.
Well, and the bickering in the jungle, I just kind of feel like if I ever was like in one of those strike forces, I'd want to sneak up on the bad guys instead of like hollering at each other in the woods.
that's the point, yeah.
Hey, we're over here.
Well, let's go ahead, Randy.
You can swear silently.
And I've mentioned this about other episodes and reviews and stuff like that, that sometimes the show does it wonderfully. They nail it. Spoils of War, Silo. They nail it. The tension builds. From the first scene, every time you come back from a commercial, the tension, and it just builds, and it builds, and it builds. And that's what it felt like we were going to get over in Vietnam. It's building, it's building, it's building. And I'm like, what's going to happen? What's that next? And then it turned into a joke. Mm-hmm. It was like they were scared to take that dramatic step, the next step to make it, well, this just got real. You know, we're not playing. It felt like they were at summer camp in some park in Los Angeles with the rain machines going and la-di-da-di-da. And guys, someone who's been shot at in combat, no, yeah, you duct tape everything down so nothing makes a noise. You're not bickering with each other. You're not yelling at each other. You're not joking. Hey, why are you over in the bushes taking a leak? Get over here. What?
Isn't that what you have hand signals for?
Well, yeah, you use hand signals. You are as silent. The rain, they had the rain going, and they were louder than the rain. They would have been using the rain as cover. But the show sometimes, like I said, it gets it just right. And then sometimes it feels like they get right to the edge and they can take that next step that will make it serious or make it super emotional, super dramatic, and they take a step back. It's like they're scared to. That's like, I don't know if they're nervous or if they flip a coin whether it'll work or it won't work, and they decide it won't work, so let's just take it back a step. And they ruin a serious storyline. And that's what they do.
Well, I think one of the problems is there's only one Frank Military.
Yes. True.
He's obviously not afraid to do anything on the show, but I wish there were more of him.
Me too.
I am so glad that you brought that up. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
So I'm so glad that you brought up Frank. And the finale, like, it's one of the things that I don't know if you guys do or not, but I will always look to see who's writing the episode. And we got to the 2-part, which, by the way, 2 hours of NCISLA nonstop. Yes, so excited to see that. And I'm like, Military and Gimel. Yes, I have hope for this finale, which always gets followed up with, oh, dear Lord, it's Military. What is he going to do to them this time?
And so,
yeah, edges of the seat. And I think that maybe a lot of people finally went, wow, this is what it used to be like. Like, this was the episode that we had been waiting for all season. And I'm probably digging in too deep on this, but I felt like the finale, there was like 2 finales. There was the finale for those of us who were diehard fans, which was all the bickering between the team and all that conflict of you going, how are they going to resolve all this? And then there was the explosion finale for everybody else who just like passively watches it, who needs that as their what's going to happen next. So I'm sort of looking at this through 2 lenses, and I go, man, if they could give that to us more often, we would all be, I think, extremely happy campers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's a little bit about Denzi, because can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I want to talk about what happened to Denzi over the course of this season, because, you know, what's going to happen with this future? I mean, I think a lot of people thought we'd have a wedding at the very end, which didn't happen. And I was really kind of confused about, you know, the fact that all of a sudden, you know, Kenzie is saying she doesn't want kids, she doesn't want to quit her job. But she was fine. It seemed like she was fine with Deke starting this bar. We haven't mentioned that yet, so I'd like to see if we can talk about that. So what do you think? What's going on with Denzi?
Flip-flop. It felt like throughout the season, one of them was advocating for them to leave or have kids, and then suddenly it would flip to now that person was saying, no, that's not what I want, or that's not the direction we should go in. And so that got to be super confusing. I got really scared about the bar, which, by the way, if I hated that idea, only because it seemed like an exit ramp for Deeks that I refused to even entertain.
Yeah. I'm with you.
We're with you. We're with you.
I feel it's a little bit like what Randy was describing with the with some of the intense, like the Vietnam scenes, where, you know, they have this sort of approach avoidance, like they kind of go towards deepening the relationship, and by they I'm talking about the writers now, and then they kind of back off, like they're just afraid to go all the way there. And they've done some really great writing for that relationship in the past, but it's like they're just afraid to take that final step. And I don't know why. I know there's that superstition about, oh, they get together and then it's all downhill from there. But as I've said many times before, I think Bones is a perfect example of where they did that season 5, and they had many successful seasons after that. And they did a really great job. And they didn't tame down the relationship at all after Booth and Brennan got together, which is very much what I feel like is what has been done with Denzi. Yes, they talk about the fact that they're together, but I mean, would you ever see anything on screen about their relationship? Not so much.
Was
I mean,
this
it's got Eric and Nell in bed.
Was this season? Because I mean, this is how bad it is. I can't even remember if this happened in this season. With Whiting coming back and kind of giving him that ultimatum.
Yeah, whatever happened
Was
to
that
that?
this season? Right. So A, nothing happened with that, but B, I think that was a nice, you know, showing of their relationship with Kenzie being supportive of him.
Yes.
You know, and yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for that. And I think this might be the unpopular opinion alert again. I don't think that in the finale, in that argument, that Kenzie was saying she did not want to have kids. I think that she was not going to be able right then and there to say when she wanted to give up work and have kids. And I don't think he's ever asked her that before. You know, he even said, I've asked, you know, we've talked about this, I've asked you to think about it. And yes, she wants them sometime in the future, but I don't think she's ready to stop work now. I mean, clearly she's not. She said she wasn't. And I think she just is not able at this point to put a date certain on that, or an end date on her career, which she would have to when she starts to, you know, to seriously want to have kids.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Agree.
as organic, to borrow my own word again, as that discussion ended up being, and I agree with your interpretation about Kenzie and children, my big issue was what they did with Denzi, other than kind of the long range, what they're planning for their future, but just in terms of their day-to-day banter. It was all about this wedding planning that just became this bizarre discussion about choreographers and Kenzie's 150 best friends. And to me, it just felt so out of character, and that disturbed me more than the kind of the larger and more serious issues, which I thought they handled well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've thought about whether or not that was out of character, and it kind of, I think they left this part of Kenzie back in whatever season it was when she and Deeks first got together and he met the friends, because I think, and that seemed a little out of character at the time, but they've now planted that seed that there's this, you know, girly, for lack of a better word, part to her that talks about fantasy engagements, and I'm guessing fantasy engagements lead to fantasy weddings, you know, and there's that really girly, frilly part of her that the wedding part that she's been talking about didn't surprise me all that much when I put it in the context of that. But what happened to the wedding on the beach that they were talking about? That was great. You know, that would have been perfect.
Hey, they talked about it.
They did.
That was
last
great.
season. That was last season, though.
Was that last season? Oh,
yeah,
dear.
that was season 8. That wasn't even season. That was before they were engaged.
Well, what I think they must plan out the season way ahead of time. So they knew in the beginning. I didn't think they ever planned on having a wedding this season. I think they
agree with
never
you.
did. You know, the plan all along was Mosley's arc all the way through to the very end. And I think all those little bits about them planning the wedding was just to keep Denzi fans somewhat occupied with that idea that, yeah, this is a possibility. And the one thing I am glad of, that they didn't just sneak in a wedding either off screen or at the end of an episode or something that kind of denied us something major. Because I think if they finally do have them get married, it better be major.
Yes.
Yes, there would be an uprising.
Oh, my words exactly. I was just about to say that.
Well, and just back to the kids' discussion in the parquet there. I was also, and I've seen, I think maybe it was on the review, some comments. I couldn't help but wonder if there was also some element of her that was wondering whether it would be physically possible for her to have kids after all the trauma she'd been through when they had that helicopter crash with the injuries that made it impossible for her to walk. And, you know, that it's...
Wouldn't she already know that, though?
Not necessarily, no, because I won't get too medical geeky on you, but you know, when you've had significant trauma like that, there can be, for example, if you've had like actual removal of a hysterectomy, that's a definite no. But sometimes from trauma like that, you can have scarring that would make it difficult to get pregnant, and you don't know that until you start trying. And that can be, that process of trying to have kids and not being able to conceive is excruciating for people. And I couldn't help but, and maybe it's just because of my own lens, because I deal with this in my own work a lot, but wondering whether she just didn't want to add that kind of a strain to the relationship as well, if it would be like an exercise in futility.
Or even
Well, and I think it's also a big fear of hers.
in the
It
event.
has to be a big fear.
Right. Because she knows how much he wants kids, right? And what if she can't give him that? What if her body doesn't work because of all that trauma? Right? That's
Do
what
we
I'm-
know she really wants to have kids?
Yeah,
Well, I said he really, Deeks really wants to have kids. And so if that's important to him and she can't be part of that
Right.
for logistical reasons, then well, how would that affect things? That's,
I believe
mean,
she does want to have kids. I think she said it. I mean, consistently enough that, you know, that's on her bucket list, if we remember from whatever season that was, if that was this season or last season. And but I also wonder if it's not so much, gee, that I can't have kids, as, you know, because there are ways around that. I mean, not everybody is open to those things, but some are. And I think, you know, obviously if he's been a big brother to a foster kid, that's something that I think that he would be willing to look at, certainly. And she's got to know that. You know, in my head, it's she doesn't want to give up her job before she has them, because I'm giving up my job for nothing then.
right.
You know, I think that's kind of the way I guess you can't take a leave from being a secret agent. You know, I don't know. Can you take a leave and then come back if you haven't been able to get pregnant?
Yeah, it's not, I would imagine it wouldn't be easy to do.
But she loves her job. I mean, she loves being an agent.
And I think she
That's
defines
her identity. That's her
Absolutely.
identity.
Yeah,
And when he
absolutely.
said that, to her there, I think that she took that as a betrayal, you know, that he would leave her if she didn't quit her job.
You
So
know,
is
and
there a future for Denzi?
oh, I think
Oh,
so.
yes.
Absolutely.
There better be.
I think, though, that was a deliberate choice on the part of the writers, too, because, you know, her words could have been taken multiple ways, you know, either way, that I can't give you kids, or I can't give you the time certain that I'm going to want to quit and have kids. But he also could have any number of times said, you know, when he said, we shouldn't be getting married right now, should have been the two words that followed that. And
Right.
there were a couple of opportunities for him to have clarified that and he didn't, until she was basically about to walk away. And I think that was probably a very deliberate choice on the part of the writers to kind of
Absolutely.
that tension and that stress over the hiatus, along with the, you know, and whether this is part of it or not, but Eric Christian Olsen's, you know, all the curiosity about whether he's coming back, you know, I think that probably amps that up some.
Another cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what are some of our wishes for season 10 now that we've kind of, you know, discussed what happened in this past season? What do we want to see for the next season?
Deeks M.
Not Mosley.
Yes, I feel like we're owed a Deeks M by now.
Deeks M.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And
Well,
what
but
about
what
the
should be the
box?
content of that too?
What about the box?
I don't think we're ever going to get that.
What's in the
Box?
box?
I think-
What box?
I think Shane
There
Brennan
is
took
no
the box
box.
with him.
I think so.
Is it still there? Did we even think to look for it this year?
I
Maybe
don't,
it got burned.
I don't,
It's in the burn room. It's in the burn room.
I just have a little bit of a Sheldon Cooper streak in my head, and not knowing what's in that box makes my brain itchy, as Sheldon says.
Ah,
But what about this bar thing? Can we actually see him, you know, possibly going to work in this bar? To me, it just kind of boggles my brain.
Does anyone watch NCIS New Orleans? Because somebody
Yes.
mentioned
No.
somewhere that the guy owns a bar there too. So, but he works still. How does that
Sure.
work?
That's true. I
Yeah,
don't
Pride owns the bar. He's the team lead. He's like the Mark Harmon of that franchise, and he owns a bar. But that's a little bit different. It's a bar, I think, that his mom sang at, and that so it has significance, and yeah, he's going to be working at the bar.
Let's face it, this came out of left field. I don't think any of us would have thought, oh, Deke is going to buy a bar. I mean, we all thought it was a joke until he actually showed him that. And then I'm wondering, maybe they are going to do it. I mean, they had a location, and, you know, who knows what's going to happen in that car crash at the end. I mean, is he so debilitated he can't go back to work? You know, so maybe the bar is where they leave him until he can come back.
I think a bar is a bad reason for just a bad thing. Sorry, for so many different reasons, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that should they keep whatever this business is, it won't be a bar ultimately. You know, it's probably zoned for something commercial, but does it have to be a bar? I've got ideas. I'm writing them probably over the summer, so I'm not going to share. But I'm hoping it doesn't stay a bar.
But did anybody say, did he actually say he bought the bar? He said his friend was going to let him take it for a run. Yeah.
Taking it out for a spin. I'm not sure how that happens. I mean, I guess do you pay rent for a little while, or do you put a little money into it but not pay rent so that, you know, the owner's not out of anything? I don't know. He's taking it for a spin. I don't know how that happens.
Well, he can take it out for a spin, and then he should leave it right where it is and walk away.
Yeah. And, you know, somebody mentioned it before that I was stunned when Kenzie was so supportive of that. I mean, it was pleasantly surprised. But where did that come from? I mean, she should have hauled off and smacked him. I mean, you know, the old Kenzie would have. And I don't think it was any lie when he was saying, I wanted everybody here just in case, because, you know, that came out of complete and total left field. And he didn't say anything to her about it. I mean, that was totally dropped.
Yes.
Those are moments I look back and go, who wrote this? Are you new?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you even watch the show before you write an episode? Is that how it works?
Although it did lead to that cute little thing where she hugged him and he picked her up on her feet, and that was cute. But still, I don't think we could have figured that out some other way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Especially just considering his job, I'm thinking post-secret agent, having a stationary place where bad guys can look you up reliably.
Right?
It's a terrible idea.
Yep. Yeah.
How about undercover police officer? How about detective that no one in LAPD seems to like? Who are going to be his customers? I mean,
the people on his team who also shouldn't be going to the same places day after day.
Exactly.
Like
don't develop routines. That it came out of left field. That's a perfect description for that.
Well,
maybe he'll run the bar and be a secret agent, underground spot. I don't know. Well, you know, fanfic, we can do whatever we want.
I'm thinking surf shop.
There you
Surf
go.
shop.
You know, well, it better be closer to the beach.
But we don't know where this is.
It's on the east side, whatever that
Better
is.
have it upstairs for when somebody kicks him out of bed.
Yeah.
He's in East LA. Is that what you said? He's East LA?
You called it the
That's
east
even
side.
worse.
Yeah. Well, people in LA define east in very different ways. Some people would say just east of the 405 freeway, which is really close to the ocean, but yeah. It could
But
be.
I'm
Suddenly picturing all of the writers in the writer's room listening to this, just crossing things off the board. Or
Oh,
maybe
please.
I'm just hoping for that.
Yeah, you think they're listening, huh?
You want to give them our phone numbers? They can call any of us anytime. But I mean, because here's a perfect example. If Deeks wants to be helping veterans, there are so many other ways to do that than opening a bar.
Right.
Well, I was thinking a boys club. You know, get back into me. I can see him doing something like that. But
Yeah.
Cheers, we're gonna do. You know, Sam, and we're gonna do George. Hey, George, we're gonna do all that. Really? No.
He could pair the veterans up with young boys as a mentor program. There you go. I solved their problem. You're welcome.
He's all kinds
Yeah,
of
but
stuff.
yeah, but are we gonna be satisfied with any other thing than him coming back to NCIS and being Kenzie's partner?
Oh,
I
well,
don't think
this is
so.
part-time anyway, so it doesn't matter. We're just going to hear about it after the fact. You know, I can't. That definitely, he still needs to be working. This is going to take about a year or two, however long the series lasts, for him to get whatever he's going to do in shape. And this way we'll know what they're doing afterwards and be happy with that. And Yeah, I got it all. It's all in my head.
I like your version a lot more than my version.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it until they ruin it for me.
To me, it feels like they chose it deliberately because it's a way to get the gang together to say hi to Eric Christian Olsen for one scene in an episode.
Oh, God, no.
Stop.
It really upsets me to think of it that way. So I'm going with some version.
That's exactly what I thought too. It's a way for them to still interact with Deeks and have a place to go hang out.
You're making me sad.
I'm sorry.
I don't like it. I don't want it.
I can't do that.
No, I don't like it at all.
I mean, the thought did enter my head, and then I pushed it aside, and I went to my happy place, which is not Deeks Bar.
So you're saying no more thigh holsters, right?
What a loss that would.
That's a loss. That's a loss.
Do we want to talk any more about what we want for what we want for season 10? Do we want to tell the writers what we're looking for? Because what I also would like to do is one thing that we know when we have these roundtables, we really don't talk about Deeks, but I want to talk about a little bit, since this is probably our last roundtable, is why do we love Deeks so much? And what makes him so special, and why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why have we done this for the past 5 years?
Well, it's not his hair.
Yes, it is. That's one of the things.
Okay, y'all go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, Randy, you first. Why do you respond to Deeks?
It's his character. Not the character of Deeks, but Deeks' character. And I saw it a lot this season, and especially in the finale. He's not one to just take orders. He wants to know. He'll do what you ask him to or tell him to, but he wants to know why. I mean, he was even in Callan's face. Hey, you're I understand you're trying to save your father, but now you're sacrificing someone else in order to do this. Are you sure? Is this something you want to do? He challenged the why. He went along with it, but he said, look, if you really thought this through, he gets all in Mosley's face and says, are you kidding me? This is a domestic issue, and you're ordering us to go do something that's dangerous, illegal, gets killed. It's that irreverence that. Yeah. Hey, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what you want me to do. Why? Okay, well, you want me to do it this way? I'm going to do it my way. Look, I've been around the block. I grew up here. I know what's going on. It was that kind of attitude. It was, to me, when he came on in season 2, it was just a fresh breath of air. You had these stuck-up federal agents, did things by the book. They would bend the rules every once in a while, but then here comes this surfer dude that just is almost the antithesis of them. But it was an addition that gave them another tool in their toolbox that he fit right in, which didn't make any sense. A surfer dude, as a cop, he shouldn't have fit in, but he did. He fit. He was a compliment to the rest of the team, and that's why I like Deeks. That's why I like that character so much.
Me too.
Yeah, I think, Randy, what you were saying before about him challenging Callan and then Mosley and even Kenzie in the last episode, to me it's not even him just doing it to challenge authority or to know why. I think when he's doing those things, specifically those particular actions in those episodes, he's kind of like the conscience of the group.
Absolutely.
He's saying, everybody, we got to step back and look at why we're really doing this, and at least let's be honest about it, because if we're going to do it, let's not kid ourselves as to why.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic considering that he killed his partner, but maybe he can talk from the most experience then in terms of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, with his partner, he's been there. He knows sometimes you have to do the wrong thing for the right reasons if you're willing to live with the consequences.
Right.
But what he was seeing with Mosley was, Mosley's going to make us do this. We're the ones that are going to suffer the consequences. They could go to prison for what they've done,
right,
if it goes any further. So yeah, he's going to challenge it, and I like it about him. I like that stubbornness, that go against the grain kind of mentality.
I think he's the most human, I think, or at least the most well-drawn, maybe is the word I'm looking for, of the four main characters, because of that. You know, we know what he's done in his past, and we know why, and we know that he's been inconsistent about things, you know, and I think he's just, I mean, Eric Olson often uses the term flawed when he describes him, and I think, you know, that's part of what makes him very well drawn, because he's the most human in that respect, I think.
And he shows a vulnerability that sometimes the others didn't. In the beginning, in the first season and the part of the second, there are these tough as nails guys, which I'm sure you have to be, and woman, but Deeks brought that vulnerability to that character that wasn't there, you know, and you root for somebody like that. You connect with them. And I think Eric Christian Olsen brought such, someone earlier talked about how expressive his facial features are. I mean, he can sell an emotion without words. I mean, he doesn't need the words to express himself. And I think that, and partly for me, it was that episode where where he's shot, and you find out, you know, his father's an alcoholic, almost killed him as a child. He shot his father. I mean, all that reveal that they gave us, I mean, that connected me, because here is a guy who, by all rights, should have turned out completely different, and yet he turned out as a caring human being who understands and relates to others and cares about other people. And it was just amazing. I mean, I connected with him when he said that line in Fame where he said, "Don't worry, Fern, I'll be back." And that for me was it. You know, I mean, that was LA. He brought LA to that show.
Yeah.
Because the others could have been anywhere in the United States.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he's a very multi-dimensional character. So he's got the funny guy side. He's got the surfer side. He's got the, you know, the broken little boy who grew up to make something of himself. He's a lawyer.
He's irreverent. He's totally irreverent.
And he does all of those things equally well, or I guess Eric portrays all of those sides to Deeks equally well. Whereas Sam is the button-down Marine. Callan is like the tortureful childhood and very serious and broody. And not that they're not good characters, but I just feel like Deeks is the one that's just the most multi-dimensional in terms of the many layers to what makes him who he is.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, nailed all of those key words with conscience and human and vulnerability. I feel like, you know, if you had to sum up one thing, like he could have walked in at some point, if you picture it, and like opened that messenger bag and just like put his heart on the desk. And while he hid, you know, he kept some personal things back, as all people do. He showed more than everybody else, especially when he came onto the show. That human element was really missing out of the rest of those core characters. For me, the very first episode, by the time you get to the end, you're on a 42-minute episode. At the very end, you've got Hetty trying to bring this guy onto the team. We've barely gotten to know him. That alone made me go, if Hetty's bringing him on, there's something else to this character. Yeah. And then I think what really drew me down this rabbit hole of this fandom was very early on going, he's going to be the one who gets through what we used to term Kinsey's proverbial wall. And he's going to be there and he's going to keep at it. And you know, one day there's going to be like sort of these breakthroughs and something more is going to come of him and them together, and how they were going to get there and what was going to happen afterwards was just so compelling. That's what kept me coming back.
Well, and the other thing is, I think they all had walls. Every one of those characters had walls, including Hetty. I mean, they were almost impenetrable. And then this guy walks in who, you know, takes their jokes and takes their, you know, you're just a cop thing, and he breaks them down. He broke those walls down, and because he did that, we had a way in. The fans had a way to get in behind all those walls. He was the opening for us.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
Right. And I think he had to be the outsider. You know, I think from a writing perspective, you couldn't have had a, like they had the first season, you couldn't have had a Dom. You know, Dom will help with the exposition because he's the new guy. But the new guy who's an outsider, but who's not really new at the job and just does it differently, but equally as good. That I think
he could ask the questions.
Yeah.
That the fans needed to know.
And can shine a light on, I think it was Randy before who talked about how, what would you say, stuffy? No, what were they? I forgot how you talked about the federal agents before, whatever word it was you used, the stuck-up federal agents.
Well,
that's
they were
what it
just
was.
stuck up. They were just, because you're just a cop. You're not us. And but he just broke right. He didn't stop. Sam put him down, and with the other characters, opened a window into Sam, into Cal, and into Kinsey and Betty. With Sam, Sam treated him horribly, bullying, and it was just, dude, but he didn't quit. He wouldn't stop. He wouldn't go away. And it finally opened Sam up, and we get Sam's smile, we get Sam's sense of humor, and we get to see Sam. So that, he was just the key to all of that.
I thought what was interesting about this finale, too, is that connection that came between Callan and Deeks, that they were on the same side.
Yeah,
and that was one of the first times that's happened, except they did that little scene where he first mentioned a bar or something when they were in that bar together. But that was really interesting to me because they were on the same wavelength. And Callan kept checking on him because he knew that there was something wrong. And I found that really intriguing. And I wish there would be more of that in season 10, where you see more of a connection between this team. And I think where they left that finale is that's what's going to happen. They're going to find themselves fighting for each other and getting back to that team dynamic that we all love to see when they're all working together as a team.
Is Harley going to come and rescue them?
No, I don't think so. I think Harley's gone. I think Harley's dead.
I think they want us to think it too much, so that's the only reason I don't believe it. I think they were very, very heavy-handed with trying to
I agree
with that. So for that reason alone, I don't think she's actually dead.
Yeah.
Well, I'm usually wrong about these things anyway, so ignore me completely on that.
That was me really just hedging my bets because I do,
So going into the future, what do we hope for Deeks?
Well, we hope he's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll help.
And he remembers everything.
I hope he gets to leave, and I hope he gets to leave with Kenzie one year, and I hope that they have their babies, and I hope that that's a couple more seasons away.
Cue the violins. I hope he goes back to work at NCIS and they realize who they have there. I don't know. And I hope Mosley gets arrested and carted off into jail. And I hope Hetty takes over and puts it all back together. If we're going to be dreaming, I'm dreaming that.
Did any of you listen to the podcast that Eric Christian Olsen did with Matthew Del Negro, the 10,000?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, and before listening to that, I was kind of afraid that he wasn't coming back. But listening to that, it sounded like he was talking about NCIS as a really good gig to have, where he gets to go home at night to his wife and kids, and then he gets to do this other stuff on the side. So to me, it felt like he wasn't out of the show after listening to that. So I was a bit more hopeful that he would be back. But as I've already said, that explosion, they're all dead. I'm sorry. There's no surviving that. So.
What do you think, Randy? Can somebody survive an RPG attack?
Well, they all would have been killed in Vietnam, so.
Yeah, well, there was the episode where they had the female assassin that shot the SUV that Sam was in with an anti-tank rocket, and all it did was destroy the engine. So in Hollywood, they'll walk away. They'll need a Band-Aid. Somebody will have a knot on their head. Somebody will have one of their arms in a sling. But yeah, they'll be okay. but in reality, no. And the damage to the vehicle, even in the last shot where it was on its side, that amount of energy would have killed all of them instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I've seen cars like that. No.
I
Well,
might
even
have.
even if not dead, nobody's face has all the parts rearranged in their original locations after something like that.
Right. I might have frozen those screens a couple times in rewatching those scenes for research purposes only. And I may have noticed a little bit of blood coming from Kenzie's ear and some coming from Deke's mouth or nose. I couldn't quite tell. The other two in the back seem to be fine. They look like they're taking a nap. But
you can't see their bodies. You can't see their bodies. So who knows what they're going to do to them? They got to have some sort of more than a Band-Aid. It's got to be more than a Band-Aid, or
well,
it's not going to be
they were all
realistic.
unconscious. So doesn't that kind of mean that they've all at least got a mild concussion? I mean, they're all unconscious right now.
Yeah.
So
They have all summer to wake up.
Maybe they could use
bleeding
those.
summer ears. That's intracranial bleeding.
yes,
That's brain
I looked
trauma.
that up.
That's
Yes.
serious. If Deeks is bleeding blood through his nose and mouth, that's severe thoracic trauma, punctured lungs, punctured heart. Okay, yeah, but they'll be fine.
Smoke inhalation.
They'll be fine.
They'll stand up. They'll cough, dust themselves off, and walk off into the sunset.
But here's another question, though. Here's another question. Okay, they're blown up. Okay, now does the military guys who blew them up, are they going to come check on them?
Right.
Is the guy that they stole the son from, is he going to come? And is there going to be, are they going to drag him out of there and interrogate him to find out where his son is? I mean,
did the gas tank explode yet, or they still have to worry about that too?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I couldn't tell. I might have watched that a couple times too, and there's definitely explosions in the back, but I can't tell.
Well,
if
that was a
gas
good
tank
explosion.
It was a great explosion.
Maybe the Mexican cartel has hired those guys from the theater to like sew all their parts back together if they are too blown up.
Oh God, that's a terrible thing.
They gotta bring that storyline back.
I hate that episode, and I've never watched it. I've only seen the previews of it, but oh my goodness.
I want them to bring that back. They really do need to, because Sam and Kenzie, was it Sam? Yeah, Sam and Kenzie spent an awful lot of time with that group of people, and I want them to bring that back.
Oh, it was disturbing.
When they do these giant explosions, I always wonder, are they going to pick up in that moment in the premiere, or are they going to time jump forward and then potentially tell the backstory?
No, you can't do that. You've got to start right there. You've got to start with that scene. You can't give that up. You've set
I
this
think
up.
so too. I don't want to
do that.
have a black screen 3 months later.
No.
They did that.
No, it's the same when Deeks was being tortured
right
to give up Michelle as an agent. They started right there.
Please don't traumatize me with that memory again.
I have to say, this is the first time since I started watching the show, because I am late to it, that I've had a significant cliffhanger like this. So I really am beginning to empathize what you guys felt after the end of season 5, because as I watched that on DVD, I was like, oh, here's season 6, right? On my table. This is cool. And I already knew what was going to happen because I'd seen periodic episodes, but I don't like this feeling.
Then they would say goal achieved.
Right.
There you go. I'm grateful that I like to write stories in my head and, write some of them down on paper. I'm going to make this work the way I need it to work, but I don't like this feeling otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, is there any last thoughts that we want to leave our listeners with?
Well, we all still love Deeks, and I hope he's back next year, and I hope he's back in NCIS, and I hope Denzi gets married.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Here, yes.
Okay. Looks like everybody's in agreement. Anything else?
I do, think that you can certainly give the powers that be any of our phone numbers if they would like to follow up on this conversation. I will be more than available to chat with them by phone. I'm sure anybody here would.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining on this podcast. We've had a great time as usual, and we'll see what happens in September or October whenever the show comes back again. And I hope that all of our dreams and wishes come through for Deeks, for Denzi. If you want to leave a comment below after listening to this, please join in on the roundtable. We would love to hear your views along with the staff here. And I want to thank you guys for coming on and being a part of this. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Right?
Bye.
Bye, everybody.